Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome to another live stream. Today, I'm very pleased to be sharing the stage with Mr. Hamish McLay, a man who has seen more searches than most people could shake a stick at, spent a lot of time within and without of the conveyancing field. And his job on a weekly basis is to update me of what's really going on. Plus, today, he's going to share with us some information regarding to charities and such like that he feels is important. So I'm going to toss the caber in your general direction, Hamish.
And I'm sure we could obtain yet a few more cabers from the trees behind, should we so wish.
I forgot to mention Hamish has got his winter plumage on, as you can see behind him. Delightful mist rising from the trees. Sets us in a wistful, mistful mood.
I perhaps ought to admit to the fact that I have never as yet tossed a caber.
There are a great number of us that have not, but I've
right.
it.
Yes, but perhaps it's something. I perhaps ought to put that in my bucket list.
Absolutely,
a bit of caber in the bucket, but
yeah, I was going to say.
We get the drift. Get to some Highland Games somewhere on a bonny Lancs or Loch Lomond or somewhere of that ilk, which suits my style. In fact, partly covers what we're going to speak about this afternoon. Speaking about bonny banks and braes. Yes, the keeping sort of on the conveyancing front, just briefly because it's worth sort of mentioning. A couple of things sort of came up, and I mean those of you who listen into what we actually speak about when we speak with the experts. We have people with knowledge who come to the gatherings that I attend.
Every Thursday, 10 o'clock, Property Quorum, Hamish McLay, myself. Usually, he was a bit ill this week. Chris from Root.
Chris Gilson, yeah.
Chris Gilson, and of course, the inimitable, incomparable Juliet Babulal, did I get that right? I keep getting the L's and the B's wrong. Well, anyway, Babulal, an accomplished lawyer from Gunnercook. Anyway, moving on. Today, you are going to regale us with more information from the front.
The reason I mentioned that was because it was a subject that Juliet brought up during our conversation. And I think, too, was it Edward who was there yesterday? But whatever. Both the two experts came up with the same sort of thing. Very often, we can have a challenge within what's going on with the conveyancing and slow down.
Jack's from Tuscan capital.
Oh, Jackson, of course. Yes, it was Jackson. I've completely forgotten. Thank you indeed for that, Gareth. Thank you for the reminder, because that what he was speaking about again it's great to hear from other people in different aspects of conveyancing when they speak about things. And one of the comments that came up was possibly not the experience that one would like to the solicitor on the other side of the transaction to have. And we just said a couple earlier, and I thought these well worth mentioning, because when you actually sort of buy a property, you buy the property and the sort of content thereof and the garden and sort of all the rest of it. And every now and again, you get some strange things. And this is what's very important about getting searches on the particular property. And one of those searches, and I did notice something, I'll get the full detail on this in sort of due course, because somebody was saying that in actual fact, what is beginning to happen now, and you can understand this, they're beginning to speak about the air above your property. Who owns the air?
Well, no one's ever really bothered asking that sort of question before. This is all very new.
Yeah, but can they still fly helicopters and all of these or anything of that matter? What about these nice little cameras? Who
drones and such?
So owns it? But one of the things which does come up very, very often is, and this you understand because we've heard of all these wondrous bits of drilling that the government were discussing that they wanted to do to get underneath, go into the depths of the earth to put out all these shingles, whatever the heck they call them, to produce yet more energy. They consume more energy to get the stuff out than they did go out. But however, very often when you buy a property, you don't necessarily buy what's under the ground. You don't necessarily own that, which means if you buy a property in certain places, the government can go down there and do their sort of drilling from the side or wherever. Anyway, but one of these things came up, and it was obviously an experience. And this particular property came up, and it said mines and minerals included. Now that that's absolutely fantastic. That's what you want.
Because I get that, but also it presupposes that there are mines and minerals underneath it, right?
No, not necessarily. It is just it's a legal term to say, look, if you dig down, you can dig down, old son. Because you can buy some pieces of land, and you aren't able to retain ownership of any minerals you find there. If you buy something which is previously a gold mine, it would come out, mines and minerals excluded or something. So the question came out, and exactly like the expression that came on your face there, Gareth, the question came from this particular solicitor. Could you please explain? It's self-evident, one would have thought. However, one of the big challenges is these unnecessary questions people ask. A solicitor, they don't know what the heck they're doing, so we'll ask a question. What happens if somebody asks a question? It has to be answered. You can't ignore it. And if you don't know where to find the answer, what's the poor soul going to have to do? Get out all their legal books. What the heck does that? It's obvious. And there was another one. What was another question that came through. Has there been any criminal activity in the property? That was a question that the solicitor wanted to know the answer to. Well,
somebody might not have paid their television license, but I'm not sure.
How far back do they go? Which is quite interesting. One of our speakers coming up next Thursday, the incredible Rowan Waller, the property Waller. He was in a little place called Crowmarsh, Gifford, where Jethro Tull used to live many, many years ago. Not the band that many people know about, but what's fascinating actually is the tales that he sort of tells of what goes on the ground. Now that probably goes back, I think, the 17th century. Jethro, so it's obviously not Ian Anderson, plays. It's not that Ian. It's not that Jethro Tull that used to live there. But if somebody was to ask that question of that particular property that goes back to the 17th century, how would you answer it, Gareth? The question was, has there been any criminal activity in the property?
Not as far as we know.
Spot on. Because if that question was asked and you didn't answer it, if it was found there had been criminal activity carried on the premises, you could be liable. And this is a bit of advice for anybody out there in conveyancing land, property land, who wants to buy a property or is selling a property. There is a question about Japanese knotweed. Now, if you put down the answer, has there been any Japanese knotweed in the garden? And you put down the answer no. If you haven't a clue what Japanese knotweed is, don't put the answer no. Put none as far as is known. Because, as far as you know, there wasn't any. Because if subsequently it is found that there was Japanese knotweed there, you could be liable for tens of thousands of pounds to actually sort of remove it.
It's very hard to remove Japanese knotweed. It goes deep. It embeds itself in cement and bricks. I have a friend of mine had one side of his house made that he had to rebuild it entirely just through Japanese knotweed, and he didn't realize it was there when he bought the place. Hence,
who was responsible for it? Well, who was responsible for the Japanese knotweed?
It's a good question.
Obviously, the Japanese, I guess. I don't know. They didn't invade this country. Did they bring their knotweed after the war to get back?
I suspect it may be an insidious, clever, underhand method of invasion. It almost, if we can't have you, no one else will. And
absolutely. Yes, but there is a spate of unnecessary questions and elementary errors that goes on, which slows down the conveyancing process. Anyway, it wasn't that I was going to speak about, but in part it's sort of relative because I like to get out and about myself. And to be perfectly honest, one of the reasons why I particularly like the property is actually the location very often, as much as the property itself. Very often the location to me is much more interesting than the property. You get some great historical pieces.
Mostly location is the most important part of all this.
Hamish, come back.
So, unfortunately, we had some sound coming off stage.
Come back.
No, you can respond. That's all right.
So, Alexa's been gone quiet on me now, which is quite handy because she just would keep on. She does do that from time to time, does Alexa? Yes, because I like to sort of get out and about, and much of the work and some of the research work that we do does actually look into registered commons, village greens, public rights of way, items of that particular sort of nature. And with my sort of interest in nature and things of that and the environment, because we do environmental search, we provide environmental searches as well. It's something which I would like to expand my knowledge. So I actually subscribe to 4 very, very interesting sort of charities, all relating to that particular idea. And in fact, I tried to run a competition. Well, I did run the competition between Christmas and the New Year, which wasn't particularly well attended because I think people were stuck. They weren't stuck inside. They were very sensibly staying inside in the warm, having a good old jolly. So we're going to open it up again.
All right.
We get nearer the time when people go out and about and be able to get free subscription to one of these 4 charities. There are four there'll be 4 prizes up for grabs, but they're all involved with very similar sort of types of things. Let me cover one that probably nobody's heard of. But the reason that they came to mind, I've received in this week's sort of newsletter, or this month's newsletter, I should sort of say, this week's sort of magazine. And the first one was called Right to Roam. Now, this was quite intriguing because these particular group, this charity, they're trying to open up and get people, enable people to walk along in the countryside where previously they've been prevented from walking. Now, of course,
this through public rights of way.
It's to do with public rights of way, but it's also, again, you think about this. I was speaking to a colleague of mine earlier in South America. He's walking throughout South America. We have these very, very British things. Somebody's got to own the bloody thing. Now, how on earth, with the hundreds of thousands of bloody acres they've got down in Dartmoor, do you need to sort of stop people from walking there or kipping overnight and stuff like that?
Some people get very hot under the collar about such things.
They own it. They think, can't have people walking on it, so I own it. It's a very, very British thing. I mean, when you actually think what the English did to the Scots with the old with the Highland clearance, or what they didn't.
Yeah, all right. Let's probably best not cover that right now.
Think, but it's so. But they've got the right to roam up in Scotland. And it's just quite interesting. This friend I was speaking to, who happens to be in South America, he's walking all over South America, all up the Andes and sort of things of that particular sort of nature. So really from that particular aspect there, who's going to just bear with me a moment? Okay, I mean,
Alexa.
There you go. Normality is resumed.
Well, almost.
So while Hamish adjusts his Alexa to fix.
Alexa has been detached, not dispatched, detached. So, as I said, it might be a very British thing because you can't imagine somebody taking ownership of the Andes. I mean, I think we say jokingly very, very soon somebody's going to take, I think we own Mars. We need some conveyances up there.
Well, Americans have already stated they own the moon, so, you know.
Who knows? So that's a wonderful organisation, the Right to Roam. I'll put some details.
You've got 3 others as well. Would you briefly talk about each one of those?
Yes. So there was the right to roam. One of the ones that probably people haven't heard of, but like the idea, let's go for walks. One people will know about is the Woodland Trust.
I'm
And
a member of the Woodland Trust.
So much work. And both them, Right to Roam, and the others, they do so much work trying to open up new places where people haven't been able to walk, new rights of way, all sorts of things. So there's the Woodland Trust, which is one of them. And it's great. I mean, the weather here in Oxford is fantastic. And if it was like this tomorrow, you'd think, yes, nice walk. Well, wait till the spring and you can get a prize, get a subscription. The next one, which is not got so many people know about. I know about it myself because it's very close. Their headquarters are very close to a solicitor that we have in Henley. It's called the Open Spaces Society. And they are involved with a project that's going on at Dartmoor, along with Right to Roam. And also the fourth of them, which is more akin to any lawyers out there. It's the Environment Law Foundation. And they, of course, put in the legal argument to actually get these places opened up. But the work that they do is all very, very significant. And you can imagine, particularly if you're sort of legally inclined, that many people sort of offer their services free of charge. But to each of the other ones, people go, if you do like the outside, it's so easy to actually be able to offer your services to those particular sort of people. But I should actually sort of say that the prizes that will be available, they'll be for a joint subscription. So, it could be husband, wife, husband, somebody in sort of partner and all the rest of it. But we'll open that up sort of later on, and we'll actually sort of make mention of it next time when we have a sort of broadcast. Probably later on in February is a good time to do it.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to that. Once again, I would say a fairly upbeat podcast today. Looking forward towards February, supporting some very important trusts that help us help and aid nature rather than abet it. But thank you once again, Hamish. And until the next time, I wish everyone out there a pleasant weekend and, of course, great mental health. Bye-bye now.